Buongiorno and welcome to the My Way Thinking podcast, or My What for Short, hosted by me, Lee Greeno, here live from the Man Cave every week. Now, today I'm speaking to the brilliant Nelly Miles. Nelly Miles is a forensic chemist turned police stateswoman in Georgia, America, and she is an absolutely brilliant guest, lovely woman. I was so interested in how law works over there. Obviously, we've got a lot of crime going on over here as well, but over there and things that have happened. So I was just trying to get her opinions off that and how things work. And she was just a lovely person to speak to. So you're going to enjoy this chat. Now, My Way Thinking is all about us, amazing human beings that all have a story to tell. And those stories can vary massively, but with the guests I'll be interviewing, you'll always be able to take a little bit of advice or insight into how extraordinary we can all be. Remember, 4 rules. 1, no bullshitting. 2, no judging. 3, no negativity. And 4, have fun. Remember the previous episodes? Look back. You'll see some amazing ones of those with lots of different journeys. All amazing individuals. Remember, if you want to go onto YouTube, if you're watching, it's My Way Thinking podcast. If you just put that in, all the relevant links to iTunes and Spotify come up as well. Remember, subscribe and like. And finally, if there's a guest you'd like me to get on or you'd like to come on yourself, then email me. It's whatpodcast@aol.com. Okay, let's get started. This is my interview with the brilliant Nelly Miles. Okay, so welcome to My Way of Thinking. And I have a very special guest on today. It is the one and only Nelly Miles. Nelly, welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. You're in Georgia, aren't you?
I am. I'm in Georgia, in the South.
All the way in Georgia. What's the weather like at the minute?
You know, it's actually pretty nice. About mid-60s right now. So not too hot, not too cold. So no complaints.
We're over here in the UK. It's a funny period because we're just coming out of winter, and it's usually raining. It can be quite dark and dull, but we've turned the clocks forward, which we just spoke about, so it's a bit brighter. And the sun was out today, and I went out, and it's free. Even though the sun's out, it's absolutely freezing.
Oh, it's still cold. Oh, I don't like cold like that.
Yeah, I went out. I've got a motorbike, so I thought, I'll go on my motorbike. I only need a jumper on. I went out. I was like, oh my god, it was freezing. That's the problem with the UK, because the weather's so unpredictable. You just never know. You could go out in a t-shirt because the sun's out, it's warm, and then the next minute it's freezing cold. But
yeah,
that's a problem you don't have over there, do you? It's always nice.
Well, no, we have good weather. I mean, it really depends on the part of the states you're in. But I will tell you, in Georgia, metro Atlanta area, I think we do get some of that. One day it could be snowing, and the next day it's sunny. It changes. But I think once we get into the seasons, then it'll level out. But in between, you just never know.
Yeah, me and my family, we've been to Florida quite a few times, and Orlando. Took the kids to Disney and done all that when they were younger. And the weather, it was weird. If we go around July, it was beautiful, and then at sort of 3:30 every day, it would just rain. It just the clouds would open like clockwork. But in the day, it was lovely.
Yep. Experienced the same thing. I went probably 2 years ago. Before the pandemic. My kids are small, so I took them. Same thing.
Wow. Anyway, enough about weather. Should call it the weather podcast. Right now, you're the first person I've interviewed from Georgia, so I wanted to look at a few facts and figures before we start talking about what you've been up to, because I'm always interested in different places around the world, and there's some real interesting ones here. Now, the first one I wanted to touch on, obviously, we've just had the Masters. Are you a golf fan? Have you ever been?
I've never been, but we have some of our agents here that work the Masters, so I sort of live vicariously through them, their photos of being there. I haven't been, but one day it's on my bucket list.
Yeah, so of course it's the Augusta National Golf Course hosts the Masters tournament, and it was created after the club was denied as a venue for the US Open, and the first tournament in 1934 owed its success to the founder, Bobby Jones. Now they allow women, because it was quite sexist, wasn't it, back in the day? They didn't allow women and things like that.
That's what I hear, but 2021, things are very different.
Yeah, which is great. I'd love
Yes.
to go because it just looks so immaculate. It's almost like a painting, isn't it? How perfect it
Yeah,
is.
it is. It is. I have to sometimes ahead of it because we do have agents working, and
Yeah.
I'll coordinate with some of their communications folks in advance, and I've never been able to get down there, but yeah, it's rather fascinating.
Yeah, well, we have the Open over here, and I play a bit of golf, and,
Hmm.
I'll go to the Open quite a few times. And when Tiger was in his prime, we went
Hmm.
and watched Tiger Woods. It's quite fascinating because the amount of people you see him take the shots, but behind him, the amount of people, agents, doctor, he has a serious entourage behind him because he
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
so big, and these. I don't know whether they're private security or who they are. They all wear these dark glasses and they're just looking in the crowd. And you think, if you try and take a photo, he's
Uh-huh.
like, they're like, oi, put that
That's
down.
it. That's the end of you.
Which is good, because someone so high profile as that has got to feel happy to, secure and relax because he wants to concentrate on the golf. So
That's right.
it is an interesting one. Now, this one is another fact. Now, Georgia was founded in 1732 by a British member of Parliament, James Oglethorpe, as a felon colony. He wanted to use it as a colony for places for prisoners who could not pay their debts. And the social reformer believed that the debtors were released back into the cities without any form of support. And he wanted to take these people and give them a second chance in a new place. Now, this is interesting to me because on the podcast, I've had quite a few people that have been in the prison system. We had a
Hmm.
fraudster on the other week who's high profile in America. And one
Hmm.
thing they seem to talk about is the fact that when they leave prison, there's no support there, and which can in turn mean that they go back to a life of crime. So there's no rehabilitation, which then they go
Hmm.
back into the
Hmm.
system. What's your take on that, Nelly?
Well, that's interesting because when you're just talking about criminal justice reform, that is something that comes up. I mean, it's that what happens, of course, before to deter them. Also, what are other policing alternatives and initiatives? Also, if you're talking about someone we're not talking about a violent offense or violent
Mm,
crime. And so I, personally, definitely support programs that do that. And I can definitely, I have to agree there's probably definitely room for improvement in that area. Once someone has served their time and they are then released back into the population with the rest of us, what next? So I can't say I disagree with that.
yeah, it's an interesting one because here, and I don't know what it's like in the US, but everybody is under pressure. So the pressure on the police, especially with the pandemic, and then criminals, is to catch the criminals and try and put them away in prison. And it's almost like all the pressure's on that. But when they
Mm-hmm.
released, it's sort of they're let go. But the reality is they could end up going back in prison and adding more pressure on. I suppose another question could be how you deal with the prisoner while they're in prison and trying to make them really rehabilitate, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, there are a lot of different programs within the different prison systems that I've heard about that really, really work. Special programs that emphasize having some sort of skill, some sort of working skill that can be used within the prison system, but also something that when they leave. But I think more and more programs like that are definitely a way to go. I know for just having worked, even though I'm not a sworn police officer myself, but just working with police officers, I just think that especially in today's time, there's just a lot of pressure for police officers just to be everything.
Yeah,
They be counselors, they need to, address homeless populations. They need, they just have to
yeah.
beyond just. So that's tricky. But they're people that are dedicated to that cause. So I don't think all hope is lost.
No, it's not an easy one.
No.
And then finally, of course, Atlanta's known as the birthplace of the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
You can find Martin Luther King's house on Auburn Avenue, apparently. Have you seen that? Can you visit that? What's that?
Yes, actually I went probably a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
One of the groups that I'm part of is called the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And we have a particular section, it's called Public Information Officer, PIO section. And because we haven't seen each other face to face in a while, we were trying to find different ways to just connect. And so they said, hey, shoot a short, quick video. So, you can kind of check in to see what you've been doing and even maybe show different parts of like where you're from in your city. And so we actually went to Martin Luther King's house, and that was one of our stops. We went to a couple of places. We went to our state's capital, and, we're like, this is where the laws are passed. And understand, I don't have any background in video. I'm not like you. I do set up, this podcast and, make everybody look fabulous. So it was shot on my iPhone. But it was neat because we were in front of his house, and I've definitely been, done it as a tour of the home when I was growing up. But it's just funny you say that because I'm like, yeah, I just went a few weeks ago.
Do they keep things as it was back then, but you're not allowed to touch anything? What is it? Do you just walk through the home?
That's what I remember. It's been a while since I went inside. When I went a few weeks ago, and I was outside of the home, and just outside looking at the home. It was definitely looks very preserved, beautiful home.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, when you go somewhere where someone famous or someone that's been involved in history has lived. Mm-hmm. It's almost
it's surreal.
It is. We've got Stratford not far up the road. I know it's completely different, but William Shakespeare's house, we went in there where he lived, and you're thinking, wow, this guy, is the state.
I would say he's pretty legendary.
Yeah. What was interesting about that, because we went through the house and all the furniture's small and his bed's really small, because obviously back in the day, they didn't have much and everybody was a bit smaller and a bit crammed in. And you think, wow, how the stories he must have been thinking while he was there on that. But yeah, always interesting that these people that have caused such big movements, they're just human beings, but they're extraordinary for some unknown reason.
Yeah, very interesting.
Excellent stuff. Now, we connected, I believe, through Clubhouse.
That's right.
Was it? Oh, right. Okay. Because I connect with that many different people. Clubhouse is another thing. I've been popping on there. I've not been speaking enough. I've not been doing enough, as always. I'm rubbish at social media. How are you finding it? It is a great platform, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a great platform. And, I think that, in part of my normal job, day-to-day responsibilities, we'll talk about later, I need to be fluent on social media. And when I see a new platform, I like to experience. But I just thought, this is really interesting. It's like, a live interactive podcast that you can just, hey, just pick a topic and pop in. And if you want to speak, you can. If you just want to listen in, you can. Yeah. So I've liked it. I've met a lot of very interesting people so far on there, like you.
Yeah. No, but it is. I've been on a few different ones. I went on a really big one where there was lots of people. I didn't find that as good. And some of the people were a bit up their own backside, if you like.
I've done those rooms too.
Oh my God, will you shut up? But then there are
be a millionaire in 5 days. Those
that really pisses me off. But then there's great little groups. I think like where I heard you, and you hear different people that have got really interesting and the other good thing, what I like, is the wealth of knowledge on there. You can learn so much. Years ago, you'd have to pay for that kind of knowledge. Now you've got people going on there and just telling you loads of tips and things to help. So
I love it. I do a daily room every morning, 5:15 a.m. Actually, with some people from the UK. It's Rethink Time Management. Yeah. And I'm just one of those people that just into productivity and, how to maximize the 24 hours we have. And every single day, it's like a mastermind. I've been doing it now, probably in that room 3 months, every single morning. So wow. I love it.
Is it growing? Is it doing well?
Yeah, I think it is. I've actually founded 2 clubs on there, a police club And that one has a couple hundred members, and we have rooms like every week. Like today, we're going to have a room about policing alternatives and a diversion initiative with the Atlanta Police Department. And so I just think I think it's a great, just another opportunity to have just kind of civil discourse instead of yelling at each other on, social media like we like to do. So I have found it pretty good so far.
It's good in that, like you say, you are accountable because you're talking. It's your personality, where I think with social media sometimes it's easy to put a comment and put something quite nasty or, and then walk away from it and not take responsibility. So right. I do like that about it. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about you growing up and how you got into the role you're in, because something you just said there quite interests me, that there's not enough hours in the day. Where's that come from? Because I know some people, and I guess you're the same, you are so driven and positive and you want to be making the most of your day. So you got young children as well. Tell us a little bit about growing up. Is that something that maybe your parents instilled in you, or just something that happened later on?
Yeah, I think it started early on. So I'm first generation American. Both of my parents are Nigerian, from West Africa. And I mean, if you don't know anything about West Africans, you should know this. When they raise their children, they essentially say, you have three options when it comes to careers, and that's either you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher. That's it. I mean, it's like some sort of brainwashing, and so I just picked doctor. I was like, okay, I'll pick doctor, and I'm like, did I ever really want to do it? And so, just kind of on the path on that course, I would say that certain sciences and math, like I have to really study and just. It was something that I naturally just wanted to do to achieve, almost like, I want to make my parents proud, or they work so hard to leave this country to come to the States. So I just have to do well and make them proud. And I think that's just something that stayed within me.
Was it, so did you come to America before you started your education on that side of things?
I was actually born here. So my parents are immigrants.
Right.
So they came here. They lived in New York. I was born in New York.
Right. Okay.
Lived there a few years and then moved to Georgia. Essentially, was raised in Georgia.
So they told you that from the options they had there. Then you come to America, and it's like, wow, look at all these options. What happened when you were in school? Then is that something you thought, right, I want to get involved in crime, or what was it?
No, I was pre-med. I mean, I went to school. I earned a chemistry degree. I was working on becoming a doctor, and I graduated from college, and I had the degree, but something in me just said, I mean, at that point, I mean, I'm much older now, but when I graduated college, I thought, I've worked so hard, I need a break. I'm so tired. And so I was just like, now I know I hadn't done anything yet, but at the time I thought, I was just doing so much. And I wanted to take a break, but because I studied chemistry and just some of the things they put you through to get that degree, I was like, I need to still use this degree. Yeah. And I just ended up meeting somebody that worked for a crime lab. I was working part-time at a restaurant. It was like, what is your degree in? I said, chemistry. He came to eat one day with his family. He's like, you should apply for this. I didn't even know what forensics meant. We didn't have CSI and all these shows that put it in your face. I had no clue. And I applied for the job, went through the background, and I started working as a drug chemist, testing drugs, cocaine, marijuana, heroin. I was in the lab doing that. That's how it started.
Yeah. So do you think that almost you found that you'd found your place when that happened, or did you want more, or to divert in other aspects of forensics?
Well, initially I thought I'm just coming here just for a few years so that, I could use my degree and then I'll go back and study my medicine, after a couple of years. But I think, once I started, I was like, wait, there's a lot going on in forensics, again, understanding I was not really aware of this field before. And it was just constantly changing technology. There's always some new drug that we're, trying to chase and identify. I mean, I was working with police officers and, prosecutors, going to court to testify. I was like, I just thought it was interesting, teaching, learning about the tools and using those tools. And so there was something there. And so I was testing cases. And then after a while, I said, oh, I think I want to go the management route. And so I started managing people within the drug testing operation. So it was just one of those things where I just found my place. I found a home. I liked the agency that I'm working for. And so I said, you know what? Maybe I'll make a career out of this at this point.
Yeah, it's funny how things turn out, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what the other thing is with forensic, how far it's come so quickly, isn't it? It's crazy, when you think, when was DNA? What, 20 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
25,
Yeah,
something
like
that?
25 years ago. Yeah.
And to where we are now.
Yeah.
So you've been in the middle of a lot of that then. I bet you've seen
Yeah.
a lot of change, haven't you? I bet it's been mad.
Yeah, it's been a lot of change, and it's been really amazing to watch, for one of the things as far as like television versus the reality, like at my agency, once you get into a specific area of specialty, then you really stay in that area. So I was in chemistry for 16 years doing the work of chemistry. We don't say, oh, we can do chemistry and firearms and just do it all, like on TV, they do everything, but no, sir, we want you to be a specialist in your area. That way, when you go to court, you can say, you know what, my name is Nelly Miles. I graduated from this school. I've been here for 16 years. I've tested thousands upon thousands of cases. Look, take me seriously, okay?
Yeah.
I'm a good witness for this case. So yeah.
It's not all glamour like in the movies.
It's not. It is absolutely not. But it's solid work. It's a great service. It's something that's part of the criminal justice process. And it's really about justice. It's not just about locking people away. DNA obviously has been used to exonerate people as well. There are different programs that free innocent people who've been in jail for a long time. So, it's science. We follow the data, we follow the truth, and we're unbiased in this field. And I really respect that and I appreciate that. It doesn't matter what you think the answer should be. It's like we're using science, and here are the results.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, and I love watching the programs on it. Is like you say, it is the ultimate truth. There's no opinion. But years ago, that was what it was. Sometimes it was a witness, it was an opinion, it was a feeling, and trying to put things together. But there was there was sometimes, there was nothing as accountable as forensics back then. How do you feel then? You just mentioned then about people that were wrongly convicted. How do you feel about that? Do you just think it's one of those things that at the time is just, it was always going to happen? Or do you think that the system could have been better? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. And I have a hard time, making I try not to make too many personal judgments about, our system. Our system is what it is, but I think that it's just important that we're constantly working to improve the system. And so if there is new information, there's new technology, then we need to be out there trying to learn about it, trying to bring it into the different places to make that available, because we're working for the people. So I think that's important. Obviously, if there is evidence that comes out that someone's been in jail in prison and convicted of a crime that they didn't commit, that's tragic. That is definitely tragic. But we have these tools, we have the science that's basically here to try to bring life and bring truth to those cases.
Yeah, I think the reason that comes to mind is we've had cases over here in the UK, but cases in America get really highlighted quite a lot now. You've got your Netflix series coming out and things like that. So there's no hiding, which in some sense is good for the people that maybe did do cover-ups and weren't, doing what they should have been doing properly. But then on the other side of it is you think, oh, I suppose, you know, the US is different to us. As you've got all these different states, all these different departments, and they're all run so differently to me. It seems quite strange that I was speaking to someone the other day and they were like, we've got to wear masks, you know, because of the pandemic. And then they're right next to a state where no one gives a shit. So it's quite different in America, isn't it, to here in the UK?
Yes, it is. And I just feel like, you know, we're constantly in the news, and I there's so much that I could say about that, but I guess specifically, and even for the law enforcement, yes, we have over 18,000 law enforcement agencies in this country, in the United States.
Yeah.
And just in Georgia alone, there are over 800. And so, you know, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to get us on the same page, doing the same things, you know, making sure that we're we're following just consistent, even good training within the profession. And so it's a constant quest, and it can be a struggle, but I like to be optimistic and say, you know what, there's still there are leaders out there that are progressive, and maybe the ones that have been in the field maybe a little bit too long, maybe they'll be retiring soon. So that some of the, you know, maybe some of the, you know, fresh new ideas that will make it better for all of us will come forth.
Yeah. And I definitely think it's getting better. Like you say, there's a lot of, and it only takes a select few with old values or something that, you know, and now the new generation are coming through, and people like you are pushing for certain things that can only be a positive and improve. So it's just the fact that we're in a day, we're in where we are now. Things in the past are highlighted. There's no hiding now. And I suppose that's the same with forensics, isn't it? You know, you get these people that have got away with murder for 30 years and now all of a sudden they're being caught. So it works both ways, I suppose, doesn't it?
It does. I think that, you know, truthfully, if someone is in a position of like authority and they're basically a public official, they do have like a higher level of what we expect from them. And so I think it's really important that, you know, agencies are transparent, and that's something that's really important even in the work that I do. If something is happening, we get that information out. I mean, I would say probably globally last summer in the middle of a pandemic, what did we all witness? We witnessed a very, very horrific incident right before our eyes. And I think that on a global perspective, it caused a lot of civil unrest. And I think since that time, we've been, you know, working to try to make sure that, listen, if something happens, no matter where it happens, that we're timely in our response to the public to let them know what's going on. That's why I think it's just really, really important that we have strong individuals who are in positions like the one I'm in, where you're supposed to be giving information to the public and letting them know what's going on and letting them and keeping them up to date.
Yeah, it's not easy though. It's not easy, and I don't, you know, I think, and I mean, you mentioned that, and obviously the George Floyd case it's massive, you know, and you worry that because it's so big, the truth is being pushed one way instead of the other. You almost want to let it run out the way of media, but you can't. Do you see what I mean? And from us looking in,
I do. You hear that, you know, well, we don't want this tried in the public's eye, or we don't want this tried in the media. But it's, you know, it's difficult. There's no way around it. As a person that's on the end of getting those requests, I mean, our agency is responsible for investigating essentially all of the police-involved shootings that result in either death or serious bodily injury. And, you know, we have incidents that happen all of the time, where one of the things that I appreciate is that, because I'm getting the information from our investigators about, you know, what can be released based on where the case is and making sure it doesn't compromise the case. You know, you want to put information out, but, you know, our criminal investigators, they're really good at what they do. And I have a lot of trust in what they do. So I know the part of the process that we have, I know it's going to be it's going to be solid, and it's going to be together. But it's still a very, very difficult subject to try to tackle.
Yeah, definitely. It is. And I mean, there was an incident where a lady's just shot a guy in a car because she thought it was a taser or something. And you're thinking, how's that going to play out? Because there's a lot of people that are going to want to see going crazy about it. But was it a genuine mistake? But now, because it's all been on camera, it's blown up in the world, and everyone will start talking about racism and all these things. What if that woman, it was a genuine mistake, and that's it, her life's over? It's a terrible thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a terrible thing, and there are some cases that happen that we may never know about because we just don't see it on video. Either it's just not, it hasn't hit the public's eye because maybe there's no witness video that's gone viral, or even in this case, I guess it was we heard about the incident and there was a demand to release the body cam, which the agency ended up doing. But there are just some, like, without the video, it just doesn't go anywhere. But then there's some cases that they get a hold of, and it just spreads like wildfire, and then that's it. I mean, and the part that makes it really difficult is that something that happens in another part of our country is going to impact so many agencies. It's like, it didn't even happen in my time, but then they localize it. Like, okay, you saw what happened in a state that's 20 states away. Well, all police officers are bad in your area, even though there's no nexus to, that incident in that local community. So that's something that different agencies are grappling with.
Yeah. And you're quite high profile now, Nelly. Tell us a little bit about your role now, because it seems to me like you just keep, you're pushing and you're getting promoted, and you are a spokeswoman for the police as well, and you're doing all these things.
Yeah, my role's changed. It has changed over the years. I've been doing my newest role for a couple years, but we talked about my time in the crime lab for 16 years. And, at the very tail end of my time in the crime lab, we had a lot of different drug trends that would come out. And the folks in our public affairs office, that's the office that gets information out to the media, they'd come over and say, hey, you mind doing an interview on this? And so I did one interview. I was like, oh, that wasn't too bad. Then I did another interview. Like, okay, have an opportunity.
Was my hair done?
Yeah, was my hair done? Exactly. I was like, okay, get my lipstick, my outfit ready. Let's go. I can do this. But lo and behold, I found out later, oh my goodness, there's so much more to it, because saying don't do drugs, that's pretty easy message to sell. That was the area that I was in. The other part of public affairs is policy. And so I'm also a legislative liaison in this role. And so at that time, when I was still in the crime lab, if there were any drug laws that needed changing and they needed input from my section, I'd go to our state's capital and I would testify in legislative committee hearings. So it was very interesting. And so, my thought was like, hey, if you ever needed any help in this area, then hit me up. I'm your girl. I wasn't looking even for a full-time job. I just I'm like, I'll be an understudy. I'll stay in the crime lab, but I'll sneak over here and do a few interviews and, whatever I need to do. But then the opportunity came out. I was on my third and final child. And they said, hey.
Third and final.
Yeah, third and final child.
That's enough.
You gotta put it into the universe. Third and final child. And they said that there was an opportunity to have what they were creating was a deputy director position in public affairs. And would I be interested? And I'm thinking, really? You should have just gone ahead and promoted me. Don't even ask. Like, of course. And so I took that on. And then a year later, I was promoted to the public affairs director, which, yes, is the chief spokesperson for the agency. And so I'm handling, all of the media interviews and coordinating that, writing press releases, going to scenes and delivering interviews, press conferences. And then there's what I just explained, which is a legislative liaison. And so my agency will have laws that we want to change that can help our agency out. So it's not, I mean, how nice would it be with just, I just want my own personal laws changed. No, these are agency, these are laws that are going to impact my agency. And so I help get those passed in the law, finding legislative sponsors, and anything, basically what a lobbyist would do.
Yeah.
There's social media, so I'm overseeing our social media platforms, which I know we're connected there. So I run those accounts and try to do as much community outreach as possible. And so it's very, very diverse in terms of what public affairs is. But I'm also working for an agency that is so multifaceted, dealing with forensics, investigations, and we have other divisions, something called the Crime Information Center. So that's like all the criminal history information and all of that. And so, I mean, every 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, I just learned something new. Oh my goodness, I thought I was done with my learning for the day. Nope, here's something. Oh, I didn't know we did that.
Wow,
So
that must be great.
I love it. Yeah, it's great.
What interests me, because you're such you're a public figure and you're a spokeswoman, how do you deal with your opinion? Do you have to put that to one side? Do you have to be on the fence all the time? Because what interests me when you see public figures and high profile people like over here footballers, they're very high profile. They'll have an interview and they're very succinct in what they say because they've got to be so careful. Do you prep yourself for that? Is that something that you have to be very careful about? Because like we just said about high profile cases, you say the wrong thing and that's it. It could escalate. How do you deal with that?
I mean, this is a brilliant question. It's probably one of the most important things about what I do in my job. I mean, that's probably the one thing that I would essentially lose sleep over, and that's not something I give away. It's my sleep when I can. I love it. I don't get a whole lot of it, but when I get it, I'm like, y'all better leave me alone.
Yeah.
But it is it's the most important thing. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have a personal opinion. I mean, I do, but you'll never really know it. I mean, you even hear in my conversation with you, I'm just, and that is just because as a spokesperson, there's nothing called, oh, these are my personal views. They don't represent my agency. They absolutely do. If I'm making a public statement, then I can tweet something and then a media outlet can pick it up and say, oh, the GBI spokesperson says, and then it reflects upon my agency. So it's very important to constantly be mindful of that. And so I'm very, very clear on our agency mission, our goals, our positions. My agency falls under the executive branch of government. Whenever I talk to children, I always have to say, do you guys know the 3 branches of government? Because that's how I explain, what I do, because the governor of the state appoints the director of my agency. And so that's also important to keep in mind because, the governor has objectives that, he's trying to get across as well. And so I want to make sure that anything we put out when it comes to policy is in line with that. If it's an investigation, then that's really important too. That's separate from policy, but it's also important that I'm not going to be going in and commenting about cases that are ongoing or even closed. Now, catch me when I'm retired. I mean, we could do a follow-up interview on this podcast and you'll get all this stuff. But until then, no, I'm not. There's nothing publicly. Now, if I even have like 2 separate social media presences. So there's a public one where I'm sharing all the great work of the agency. And then I have one that's locked down private that I, talk about my kids. But even on that one, I'm just sharing, look, my kid lost their first tooth. It's nothing it's nothing political. It's nothing, it's
I bet the one person that gets it is your husband at night. I bet he does. I bet that is that where you just let it all flood out.
I let it out. But interesting, my husband is the crime lab director for the agency. He is. He was a biologist, did DNA for a long time. I actually met him here, believe it or not. But yeah, now he's our crime lab director. So I feel sort of bad for him. Actually, no, I feel very bad because if I need to know what's going on in crime lab, I need some information. I'm like, oh, I don't have to go far. Hey, what's going on here? Can I get that info? Hold on. I just asked for this 5 minutes ago. What's taking so long? He's like, stop managing me. I'm not your employee.
Yeah,
But
I think one of the big difficulties now, and we talk about social media, is if you've got an opinion, people, it's not like you can have an opinion, but you don't have to be one way or the other. You can have different opinions.
yeah.
But if you say something that's not on the fence, everybody will say, oh, he's left or right or whatever. But the reality is, the majority of people have got different opinions. We're not all one way or another. And I think that's the problem is, I think it's a lot better for people to be individual than all be one way or another. And I think that's where things can go a little bit wrong. I suppose for me, having a strong opinion it can be a bad thing as well, because you should always be listening to the other person's argument and taking it in. I think as I've got older, I've definitely and my wife will account to this, is when we have an argument, I'll definitely sit back and think, actually, let me think of it from her perspective. I think the problem with today and with social media sometimes is it's my perspective and that's it. I think we should all just sit back a little more and take account of what someone else is thinking, why they're thinking that.
That's right. That's it. And I mean, like you just said, though, it's completely okay to have, a difference of opinions. We're all different people, wonderfully made, and that's how it is. And I can't even say, when I see something that's out there, even, politically, can you put yourself in like one box, like everything that this person does or this party does, you agree with everything 100%? It's unlikely that that's the case for most people. We have these opinions, but I'm a proponent of social media, but it can be very dark, very ugly, very, people are very mean. I look at, kind of scrolling through these comments and some of the things that they even say on our agency platform. I'm just like, is this really necessary? Do you feel better about yourself now that you got it out? But you can't take it personally. But yeah, we've really gotten away from that. Again, going back to Clubhouse, that was kind of the reason I like going in some of these smaller rooms, because it's like what we're doing now. Meet people, have conversations, and then you hear people, they have different perspectives. It's like, okay. And it's like, if I can push back a little bit here, this is why I think that. It's like, oh, okay. Just have a conversation, and that's completely okay. But we don't know how to do that.
Yeah, which can be a shame. And the thing is, we talk about a big thing now is coming out, sexism, racism, all these different things. Yeah, here you are, a strong woman, and it seems like you're pretty keyed up and you're doing really well. So in some ways, you know, as you're a spokeswoman, you're living proof that if you put the work in, and I guess you have worked bloody hard, you can get where you want to be. Would you agree with that, or do you think it's different in different parts of the country?
Obviously, I can't speak to other people's experiences elsewhere, but I'm just saying from my experience with the people that I've met, that and working in a field that's very male dominated, even in working under the Gold Dome, I do feel like, for me, if I put the work in, and I'm very intentional about the people that I'm meeting, the relationships that I'm making, it's worked in my favor. I mean, there was a time where, I'd go into the Gold Dome, I'm like, oh, a lot of people, oh, they don't look like me. Oh, they're talking. Oh, they're talking to the man. They're not looking at me. But I'm like, you know what? That's me. Have I made an effort? Did I extend my hand to shake my hand? The time when we could before COVID. And I noticed that, there are things that we set ourselves up for. Oh, they must automatically be thinking about that. But sometimes I think you got to kind of just sit back, look in the mirror, and say, well, what can I do? And I feel that I've done that. I'm very, very intentional about meeting people and treating people with respect and kindness. If someone reaches out to me, then I'm like, even if it's not something that I can do, it's just like, sorry, I can't do this right now, but I may know somebody that can, and just really get out there and make those connections and make it work and collaborate. So it's worked out for me. And yeah, I can't say that people in another part of the country, like, I don't know what's wrong with them, why they can't do it, but it's worked out for me.
Yeah, I think another thing is as well is the current time. I think a lot of younger people, should we say kids, younger people want things straight away. They want everything instant. We want to be this, we want to be an influencer. We want to do this and that, everything straight away. And what they forget is like yourself, it takes years of hard work. And what I find about talking to successful people is they'll say, oh, I had this bit of luck. But the reality is they made that luck because of all the years of hard work they put in. And it's funny, people, especially people who are quite powerful, they're trying not to, they don't shove their ego on you. They're almost like, oh, I don't know how I got here, really. Well, yeah, you did. You put the work in. Yes, you make the look as you put in the work in. But I think today a lot of kids want everything instant, and it takes a long time, doesn't it?
It does. They want that instant gratification, and I mean, I don't blame social media for everything. But when you do open up your phone, a lot of kids, they have phones these days, and if they get on social media, they see these perfectly curated images and pictures, and they want to look like this person or be like this person and get it right away. And it takes work. It takes a lot of effort, and and then you get there. I mean, you may find those stories where it's just like you said, oh, I accidentally rolled over, and then bam, I was just amazing and successful, and I didn't have to do anything. But I haven't met that person yet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my son, he's 19 now, and he's a lovely lad, and he works hard. But even over the pandemic, he's been working from home, and he was on his phone the other day saying, oh, I'm doing this cryptocurrency. And then he's putting money into it, and I'm like, oh God,
Is he on Clubhouse and a crypto?
Oh, he's not on Clubhouse yet, but he's like, it's crypto. He's like, Dad, you need to put some money in this. I'm like, oh God, son.
Listen, we're just a little older school, okay?
Probably. It's funny. Next year he'll probably be a multi-millionaire, and he'll be laughing at me like, "Oh, I told you, Dad."
Exactly. It just takes us a little minute.
I knew I should have put some money in, but I suppose that's just the generation. Yeah. So, what's the future look like for you, Nelly? What are you looking forward to, or is it a case of just going for it?
It's a great question. I mean, I'm 21 years in my agency. I have a couple years that I, forfeited just because, you work and you get to count it towards your retirement. But I think
what's the retirement age there in those kind of industries in your industry?
I think it's in the early 50s. We work 30 years in a career like this. I can't believe that I'm even on that path to working 30 years.
I know, but I bet, I can't either, actually. You look very good. So there you go.
Thank you.
I suppose they look after, because it's government-led and all those they look after your pension-wise and things like that.
Yes. They have the benefits package. But, I think, honestly, I am just really looking into some sort of, entrepreneurship opportunities. I like speaking, and I like training people, especially when it comes to the proper way to communicate, even in the law enforcement space. I've, considered, maybe a kind of online, some sort of online business. So, I'm in that early stage where I'm just looking at what will work, because I'm not interested, in jumping ship from an agency like this, because to be honest with you, I do give a lot to this agency, but it gives me a lot as well. It's like a beautiful, symbiotic relationship, because with all the experiences I've got, I'm just getting so many opportunities to just learn and meet people and grow. So I just think that, you'll probably see me in some sort of entrepreneurial space down the road. I have to figure out what what a business plan looks like, but pardon me, my degree is in chemistry, not marketing or business, so I have to go on YouTube University and hire me a coach or something.
You'll learn it. You can learn everything on YouTube these days, can't you?
Right.
It's a doddle. So as far as future, obviously you've got young kids at the minute. What age are they at?
They are 5, 7, and 9.
Whoa,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just getting started.
So you've nearly done the hard work.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because just earlier on when they're so young, and I'm like, y'all can't do anything for yourselves. Like you can't even walk. I mean, you're just so dependent. And now that, I'm past diapers and bottles and all that, you almost feel like they're out of the house. I know they're still there, but it's been a big difference. But yeah, there's still a lot more work to do. And thankfully, like, my husband is, with the hours that he works, mine is more unpredictable, but
Yeah.
I think we have kind of a good, routine where we can kind of share all those responsibilities. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I'll be raising kids for a while. It's just funny because I will retire from my agency and my kids might be like in late elementary school. Like, ooh, I did that backwards.
there's no right or wrong way, is there? I mean,
No.
my youngest daughter now, she's 12, so she's
Uh-huh.
independent, which is great, and
Yeah.
it is great. But then I'll see videos from when she was young, and I'm like, oh, I do
Yeah.
miss those days. But
Yeah.
then we'll have friends around who have had a new baby, and they're having to change nappies and do all that,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, actually,
Yeah.
I won't want to be going back to that.
Right. Thanks for that reminder of what that was like. That no sleep
Yeah.
life and
Oh, tell me about it. Now, I always ask my guests for a bit of advice. What's the best bit of advice you've had, or maybe advice that you could give someone that maybe wanted to get into some kind of work like you've done, Nelly?
I think it's really important to be open to building a network. I'm really active on LinkedIn, and I'll have people, reach out to me and say, "Hey, do you mind, talking to me a few minutes about what you do?" And we'll set up a brief informational interview, where they're just kind of interviewing me to find out. So I would say be open to meeting people, building your network, and even don't be afraid to reach out to people to learn about things. If you see something on TV and there's an agency like my agency that's out there, I would say call their human resources department, go on their website, find out what it takes to do that type of work, meet someone that's there. That would be my advice for someone in this career, who's looking to go into this career, because you really have to be clear about, like, even with forensics, some people don't realize a forensic scientist is actually in the lab. They think they're riding Hummers on the street, collecting evidence. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, like at our agency, those are actually sworn, they're law enforcement officers, they're
Yeah.
crime scene investigators. So you just want to make sure you're clear about that and clear that you are entering the right program, because some programs out there say, oh, they're training you to do something, but they may just be like glorified criminology programs, but not really going to take you into forensics. Okay. And of course, being, a police officer, law enforcement officer, even though I'm not sworn, I know people who say, oh, I'm just not sure. I would definitely say you want to make sure that's what you want to do that. Okay. You want to put, your uniform on, carry a gun, wear a badge, and literally run towards danger, run towards fire. I did not understand probably policing, even though I worked for a law enforcement agency. I was in the crime lab. So I was real focused on the forensics and the evidence. But when I left the crime lab, and one of my first cases that I had to go to a scene for, I was called, it was in a South Georgia community. 2 officers had been essentially killed in the line of duty.
God.
And it was insane because the bad guy was on the loose. And we're like, okay, we need to coordinate how we get the information out to try to get him. And it was like hundreds of police officers in and out, putting their stuff, they're suiting up. I'm like, they're going to go run and try to go find him. I'm like, he just killed 2 people and now you're going to go find him. I mean, and these are people I knew. So I was like, wait, this is hitting different now. It really did something. It was a small community. And what really got me at the end of that? At the end, when we finally, I would say it ended. The manhunt ended. The guy ended up taking his own life. when the manhunt ended, I remember probably like on the second day, I saw the family of the killer and the family of the murdered police officers
God.
embracing. They were embracing. And I'm going to tell you, I lost it. I was like, oh my God, get me out of here. Take me back to the crime lab. This is too much for me. This is way too much.
Yeah,
I'm like, y'all didn't tell me y'all were doing all this over here. This is crazy.
Talk about emotional roller coaster.
Yes. I was like, this is a lot. And it is. It's very emotional. When I'm testing drugs and following evidence, it's great work. It's rewarding. I learned a lot. But I didn't go through those those types of emotions.
I suppose that's quite analytical, isn't it? Where you're in the lab,
it is.
And then all of a sudden you're coming out and you are emotional, and you are dealing with emotions.
I'm like vested in it. Like, hey, what's going on with this case? What's the update? Like I'm in it. I mean, in the crime lab, it'd be like, oh, my instrument, it's not working today. Let me go fix it,
Yeah.
Those are my babies, the instrument.
I mean, and it's interesting what you say there, and we haven't really touched on it, but obviously guns are a big issue over there. What's, I suppose, the difficulty from the UK, from my perspective, is if we have a problem here, we've got tasers and spray and things like that. The difference if we had guns here, when you're in a big, say an officer is in a situation where he's very fearful, if we had guns, more people would get shot. That's just part and parcel of it. What's your thoughts on the guns over there? Because it is a sticking point, isn't it? I know Joe Biden's saying things, and it's such a difficult issue, isn't it?
It's a difficult issue, and it's one of those that's very dicey when it comes to how you reform it. And although I maybe not be able to express my personal opinion, but what I will say what I will say about it is that I think some of the big challenges that we see is that the argument is that the individuals who are committing these offenses, they're not getting these guns legally. They're getting them in some underground market. So even if you reform, then you're still not really tackling the meat of it. And these are the people who are just like really pro, like their gun rights. And then of course the other side of the issue is that there's still guns, and you should still make it more difficult too, because you've got these school shootings, mass shootings, and I don't know what's going on right now, because it does seem like we've definitely had some back-to-back mass shootings, including in Atlanta. And so it's a tough issue. I just know every single time when it comes up in terms of legislation, it's intense. It is very, very intense. My agency never takes a position on that type of policy, because we have to enforce the laws. So that type of law. So unless our like the governor's office says, okay, this is what we are looking at, then we'll support that. But it's always very dicey and very challenging.
It's just sad, isn't it? Ultimately it's sad.
It is.
People are going to lose their lives, and
it is.
And like you say, there's no easy answer, because if you're a Fruit Loop and you want a gun, you're going to get a gun, one way or another, I suppose. Yeah, it is. Anyway, I always ask my guests for a favourite. It can be a film or a book or just something that resonates with them and is accessible. Have you thought of one?
It's funny because I've started back reading. When you have small children, it's trying to read books and all of that is. I just started back reading.
Well, it's Mr. Men books.
yeah, exactly. But I'm kind of more on the food thing. I've been over the years focusing on trying to eat better, eat clean, but I recognize probably when, people ask the question, you ask the question or something, I realize that I just can't live without. I just can't. And I don't even know if you all even have it over there, but it's Chick-Fil-A sweet potato souffle. Isn't that random? I was like, I cannot believe, out of all the things, like that's the one, I can't live without it. I had it last night. I mean, I got like
Yeah,
4
I've
things
never
of
had
it.
it. We haven't got a Chick-fil-A here.
You don't have a I was talking
No.
to another friend, and they were like, "We don't have."
What's
It's
it
either in the
taste? What's it?
States.
What is it? Tell me what
It's
it is.
just it's sweet potatoes with like they've got it's really creamy and it's sugary and they've got like the sweet nuts that they put mix on top. Oh, I can
Is it healthy?
explain it to you. No, it's not. It's not
You
healthy.
just said you were trying to eat
That's
healthier.
that's the only thing. I'm telling you, everything else I do, I mean, egg whites and avocados and oatmeal with no sugar and fruits and salads and salmon. That's everything. But that's the one thing. Like that's what I'm trying to explain to you. I can't live without. That's my favorite.
So it's Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A sweet potato souffle. Just look it up.
I'll put a picture on the website.
Yeah,
Sweet
sweet
potato
potato souffle. It is so good. And you know what's frustrating, Lee, though? I will tell you what's frustrating is that as many Chick-fil-A's as we have here just in my state, every Chick-fil-A doesn't sell it. It's like certain Chick-fil-A's sell it. So it is really, yeah. And then sometimes I go there and I go do the curbside pickup and I'm like, ooh, 4 Chick-fil-A souffles. And they come out like, man, it's going to take an hour to do it. And then, oh my God, the nice Nelly is gone. I'm like, what? An hour? Are you kidding me? So yeah.
Does it come in a pot? Is it in a pot?
It's just in a little container. They have different sizes, but I try not to get the big size because then I'm going crazy and I say I'm watching my weight and everything.
Well,
That's the thing.
you've let yourself down there, Nelly.
I know, but everything else. I
thought you were going to say some intellectual book.
I know. No.
No, I love that.
I mean, I'm reading right now. I'm reading something called The Happiness Advantage, and I'm enjoying that. But yeah, I just started it, so I'm just being real with you. I'd love to come up with something, but no, it's Chick-fil-A sweet potato souffle. That's it. That's it.
Well, next time I'm in the States, I'm definitely going to try that. I remember I've seen Chick-fil-A when we've been in the States before, but I've never gone in one. So that is it. That is down.
I love it.
Now, if people want to get in touch or keep an eye on what you're up to on social media, where can they find you, Nelly?
Yeah, a couple places. That's public. LinkedIn, just under Nelly Miles. Instagram is NMilesPIO. And then Twitter is NMilesGBIPIO.
Brilliant. And I'll put links in the show notes anyway.
Okay.
Look, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. Thanks so much for coming on.
I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for having me, Lee.
Lovely. I'm so glad we connected. And make sure you stay in touch because when you, like you say, when you retire and become a serious entrepreneur, we want to get you back on.
Yes, absolutely. And then I can tell you everything that I couldn't tell you today.
Yeah. Should write a book.
Yes.
All right, Nelly. Look after yourself and have a great day.
Thank you. You the same. Bye.
So that's it. Massive thanks again to Nelly for joining me today. A great guest, lovely woman. And also, thanks for listening or watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you follow the podcast because coming up over the next month, there are some even more extraordinary interviews, just like Nelly coming onto the podcast. Streaming on the usual platforms, iTunes and Spotify. So leave a rating on there and subscribe. Social media is Facebook is My Way of Thinking Podcast, Instagram's My What Podcast, and Twitter is My Way of Thinking 3. Every week I put the whole conversation on YouTube. Just put My Way of Thinking Podcast. And finally, if you would like to get in touch or you think you know someone to be a good guest, you'd be a good guest, get the email in, mywhatpodcast@aol.com. Okay, have a great day, evening, whenever you're listening to this, watching it. Enjoy yourself. Be good. Until next time, God bless. Take care.